Hello everyone, Professor Parker here, and welcome to our Book Lab number 3 tutorial. So first I want to apologize if you start hearing dogs in the background of this. My neighbor has very noisy dogs, and they were doing well all morning up until I pulled up my microphone, of course. So you might hear them in the background, and if you do, I apologize. So, on to the tutorial for today. So last week I just had you guys do the Esri lab and the first lab from our book and turn those in. From this point on in the class, that is going to change. From now on, you will still be doing the book labs. They're still very important. You should definitely go through them and do them. If you don't, your actual homework will not make sense. So, what I want to do, and this is something new I am trying out for this semester, is that I will record one of these tutorials for our current lab every week and have you guys kind of just follow along with me. I actually would recommend that you try the book lab on your own at first, and then if you get stuck, come watch this tutorial and watch me do it, because I'm going to go step by step through the lab for the week, and we'll do it all together and you can see how it's going for me. And sometimes with ArcMap it can just be simple as you didn't know where to click a certain button and that's why you're lost. And so these videos are an attempt to eliminate that pretty much as we can. And also, after you have attempted the book lab on your own and watch this video where I go through the lab, please feel free to suggest to me, hey, could you record a specific tutorial video on doing this specific thing this week? I would be happy to do that to make shorter, concise little videos. As it is, if I have my act together, and I will certainly do my best, in the YouTube description boxes where I will be posting these, I will put timestamps, if I can figure that out, I've never done that before, of where each concept of the lab comes in. So then you can just skip to them. We'll see how this works. The tutorial you watched for last week was the first tutorials I ever recorded for this class, and they were a little more vague, and like I said, trying a new approach this semester. So I hope it helps. So, just real quick to recap from our lab last week, I want to go over some of the concepts we went over then. So, in last week's book lab, we learned how to access the catalog window, which you can see over here. So you know, if you didn't pick up on this, there's this handy little it's like a thumbtack up here. It's the auto hide button. So if it's facing horizontal like that, and so yeah, if it's facing horizontal, eventually that window, as you work, you see it pops away. And this is good if you have a small screen and don't have that much space to be working and looking at stuff. But sometimes, you know, you might be accessing it a lot, or you have a big enough screen, like I'm comfortable with my screen size here, that you just want it open. I tend to like to keep it open, and so to do that, you can just click on catalog here and click that so the thumbtack is pointing down. It's kind of like we just pinned it to the board. And now as we go about doing other things, that whole side window won't go away. And then of course something else that I want to point out is if you accidentally close the catalog window, or maybe not accidentally, you just close it, but then you're like, oh god, where is it? How do I ever get this back? Easy way, right up here, that little yellow filing cabinet box. Click on that, and we got it again. Yay! And then also if you click on Windows, same thing with if you accidentally close the table of contents, you can either bring it back up there or go to Windows, table of contents. Not using this lab this week, but the search function is very helpful too. So, let's see, what else did we cover last week? How to preview. Oh, so sorry, I'm going off a list here. We also learned how to connect folders in the catalog window. You cannot access data necessarily unless you connect to the folder first. So you all have saved yours someplace different. This is where I've put mine. And I connect there. And so chapter 1, chapter 2, and you'll notice, so this is the way I like to do it for these labs. So you'll download the data from the class website, and then I like to unzip it and then make another copy of that data, just in case they screw something up in the original, then I don't have to go back to the website to re-download it. So here's the original that I keep, and then I always make a little folder inside saying chapter, whatever we're on, working copy. And so this is what I'll actually do my lab from, and if I mess up any of that data, because that can happen, I have a fresh copy. So to preview data, another thing we learned last week, you can just right click and go to the item description. And if there's a thumbnail, it'll show it there. If any of this information has been filled out, a lot of agencies don't fill it out, sadly. It's there. You can also preview the geography or the table. So before you, sometimes you will get data sets that are very large, hundreds and thousands or even more points, and that can be a burden on your computer. So it's nice to be able to use this preview functionality to make sure that what you're about to open up is what you actually wanted to open up. And remember, we have 3 different kinds of symbols here that also help us figure out what kind of data that we have going on here. That symbol right here next to airports, that's for any kind of point data. Roads will have this, or line data, like roads, will have this line with little lines coming off of it. Demonstrates that it's lines. And then polygons are that symbol. So, how to add data. What I like to do, what I do most of the time if I'm just adding a thing or two, is just click on it, drop it off into your map. Hooray, it's there. Another thing is that we have this add data button up here. And I will go to my... This is good if you want to add multiple files at the same time, because over here you can only drag one in at a time, and what if you're dragging in like 20? You don't want to do it one at a time. So I can instead just click there, hold down the shift key on our keyboard, and click on the bottom one. It'll highlight all of those. Or, you know, just those two. However it is, when you hold down the shift button before you click down a second time, it'll highlight all the stuff in between. So we already added airports. We want to add these 4. Add. Ta-da! Here it is in our map. We also went over the properties window a little bit. You're going to learn to love this window or hate it, because a lot of what we're going to do in this class is in all of these different tabs. So if we want to view, we went over coordinate systems. You can see the coordinate system information here and the datums, all that fun stuff. Can be very helpful. It's good to know your coordinate systems. And let's see. Oh, we went over how to export our map in various ways. So we can go to export map. And most of the time for this class, we will want to export a PDF. Chapter 1. And then always know where you're saving it. Don't just accept the default. One, your default area will become messy, and sometimes it's hard to find where your default folder even is. Depending on what program you're in, what version of ArcMap, it could jump around, and you don't want that. Always be very aware of where you are saving anything, and always name it properly. So we're going into our Chapter 1 folder, and I'll just save it here. So now it's there. Chapter 1. Yay! And we will go further in our next lab about how to make this pretty. Other times for this lab, I might ask you to share your map in a discussion post, because we will be critiquing each other's layouts. In that case, you don't want to do a PDF if you want to be able to, for people to be able to see it in your discussion post window. Instead of exporting as a PDF, we can export it as a JPEG. That's kind of the easiest one for online. Always change this resolution. If it says 96, just bump it up to 300. 96 is just too low. It'll make your map look grainy. It'll make it look bad. You don't want to put bad looking maps out there. And we're in the correct folder. Chapter 1 JPEG. Save. Now that says a pretty image we can post on Facebook or discussion posts or wherever the heck you like. JPEGs are handy for when you are writing a a document in Word. Like maybe you're typing an essay out for class and you're like, I made this cool map that can go with my essay, and you want to embed it. JPEGs are best for that. Which, by the way, after you have learned enough skills in this class and you get good at finding your own data sources relating to whatever topics you write for your class in the future, I really recommend making maps that are appropriate for your essays for other classes, and embedding maps. Trust me, it looks really impressive to other professors when you can like cite yourself like, I made this map, author, me. It's a nice little touch. So anyway, so that's the one last thing from last week, and we will move on, is sharing and saving our maps. So first, we always want to save our map as an MXD. You can see some of my MXD maps there. But we will go into Dropbox. You're getting a little tour of this is my personal desktop at home, so don't mind the clutter. Go to Chapter 1. Save it as Chapter 1. Now, you want to save your map documents like this while you were working on your labs, but do not turn these in. Do not turn in your chapter1.mxd, chapter 2, whatever it is we're working on. Don't do that. Every semester, I have people who just turn in the MXDs, and guess what, guys? I can't see them. If I try to download your MXDs off of Canvas, then all I get is a shell. Because the important thing to remember, we read about this in Chapter 1, and it's important from now on and forever. MXDs, our map documents, do not save data. They only point to data. Your MXDs know where we pulled this data in from. It does not make a copy of them unless you specify to do that. It just goes, all this stuff, it's like, oh yeah, inside the program, it's like, oh yeah, it was over here. So I'm going to go look for that file and pull it in. And then all the MXD does is display how we wanted it symbolized, what selections had we made, what definition queries, what's our pretty layout looking like. But it does not keep a copy of the data in there. So please, please, please do not turn in an MXD. You will not get credit. You will get a note from me saying, turn it in the proper way, or you won't get credit. Because I need to be able to actually see what you made for a map. So, but moving on from there, related note is that sometimes I will ask for a map package. Now, a map package is kind of like an MXD, except it does make a copy of the data. It does store our data. So, to make one of those, we can go to File, Share As, Map Package, and then, let's see, yep, it's going to Chapter 1, chapter1.mpk. MPK is the map package file extension. Item description, and you always want to put in this stuff. This is a map package by Cynthia Parker for the Chapter 1 lab. Chapter 1. And then you just have to do the required there. If you're feeling real fancy, you can do all of that, but you don't have to. You can press Analyze. And see, with map packages, and these are errors that we learned how to resolve in Chapter 1, but you always want to click Analyze to see what's happening. Oh, and apparently we did need a description. See, it doesn't say required, but it's required. Often for the map description, I'm lazy and I copy the summary. Unless there's something there that needs to go into more detail. And I know we can see that the area water, yeah, that's the one. I don't care about it right now, so I'm just going to remove it and we can analyze it. No more errors. Share. Yes. And here it is, making a copy of all that data, getting it ready. So when you open an MXD or a map package, it might look like exactly the same thing to you on your computer because your MXD, you made it, you presumably have the data, it can still find where the data is. But remember, always remember, if you want to share your MXD, you probably want to make a map package to send it to someone to make sure that they have all the data that's required for this map. So what's the point in sharing a map if you can't actually see any of the data that makes the map a map? Where's my mouse? There we go. Okay. So, moving on. I know I rambled on for a bit there. So, we are going to go over Chapter 2 now. Okay, so now we're going to go over our Chapter 2 lab. I will try to not be quite so lengthy as I was with the intro. We'll see. I babble. Part of my charm. So, Chapter 2, I made my working copy. Yes. So, Chapter 2 folder, Chapter 2 working copy, and here's everything that we need. This is what you download when you download the data from our assignment page. So, with this chapter, we are learning how to use tables and attributes in ArcGIS. So, like we were looking at in our last lab. Polygons. We looked at pretty shapes on a map. We get the points, lines, and polygons. Super useful. Or are they? I mean, what do these shapes tell us? Not much. That's why our attribute table is so important. You will spend a lot of time in your attribute tables. Usually more time in the attribute table than actually staring at your shapefiles. So, how do we view this attribute table? Well, we can right click and open attribute table. So your attribute table, when you first open one, might appear just kind of floating in the middle of your screen right here. But the cool thing is, however you feel like putting this map or this attribute table on your screen, you can dock it into places, kind of like the catalog table there. So I like to have mine down here. It's useful. And you can even, like, say you're going to be doing a lot of work just in the attribute table, you don't even want to see anything visual, I can bring that all the way up here and have a nice big view of it, get a look over all my data. Also, if you have dual screens, like I do on this computer, but I can only record one screen at a time, you can take it away from the dock, and you can't see this, but it's now going off my screen, and I've made it full size on my second screen. Not that you can see it. So, back over here. So, attribute tables are really important to look at when you're first getting your hands on some new data that you're not experienced with. You know, what's in there for you to work with? Is it clean? Does it look good? And sometimes you'll only find out these things after playing with it a little bit. But it's good just to take a look first. So often people just get data and try to do things without seeing what's actually there. So I always recommend, when you get new data, open it up. Look at it. And again, you don't have to bring it into the map to do this. We can use the whole preview function. I will admit I don't use that very often unless I know the data set is going to be very, very large. So, here we have it in our map. These are our counties for Ohio, same area that we were working on last week. And let's see, our scenario for this chapter is that it puts you in the role of an education coordinator for the state of Ohio. As a part of a study related to higher education in the state, your job is to assess the state's population distribution and then examine the locations of the colleges and universities in a set of counties in Northeast Ohio. In the end, we'll be presenting our results in an interactive format that shows which colleges are located in which cities and include graphics of the colleges themselves. So, in this chapter, we are going to learn how to open a GIS data attribute table, like I just showed over here. Right-click Open. How to add a table to ArcMap, how to join a spreadsheet table, how to sort an attribute table, how to perform both simple and compound select by attribute queries, how to export the results of a selection to a new feature class, how to compute statistics for a field, how to select an attribute field to label and how to apply labels to features, how to add a new field in an attribute table and how to add data to the new field, and last but not least, how to set up and activate a hyperlink in an attribute table as an interactive function. So in these tutorial videos, I'm not going to be going over all of the finer details that are in this lab. That is why I want you to read them before you watch this video. So if you haven't actually read through this lab yet, please pause and leave and come back. I'll be waiting for you. So you're going to want to read through all the smart boxes that are located throughout the lab. You know, those happy little blue boxes that have a lot of pictures and diagrams. They are very nice. They are very informative. Just really good as a quick reference. So I won't be, of course, because they are a part of this lab, what I talk about here will cover what's in those blue boxes a little bit in order to save time and your sanity. I'm not going to be going through those smart boxes super thoroughly. They will have a lot more details than I will be giving you in this lab. So again, go read them. And if there's something you do want to be elaborated upon, ask me and I will do my best to make a separate video for that smart box. So, moving on. So the first step that we want to do to get ready for this chapter, we are going to be editing our data a bit in this chapter. And to do that, we need the editor toolbar. Super handy toolbar. I pretty much never not have it on my ArcMap screen because I use it so often. And it's just not on there right now because I have a fresh new install of ArcMap and I wanted to show you how to bring it up yourselves. So there's two ways to add toolbars to ArcMap. One, quite simple. So, you know, these are toolbars that we have up here already. I can click in the gray space and ta-da! Whole list of toolbars. And you can even get custom toolbars to do custom things if you go out online and search. But for this one, we're using the standard editor toolbar. So oftentimes when you click on a toolbar and add it that way, it might appear on some random part of your screen. Also be careful if you are working with dual screens, and especially if you switch which window that ArcMap is showing up in, your toolbar might appear on your other screen, and you'll be like, oh my god, I just added a toolbar, where the heck is it? And you'll go crazy. Look at your other screen, and you can just drag it over by clicking on the dark gray bar. You can dock these toolbars so they're not just getting in the way of your map, just by bringing it up here. And be careful of where you add these, because as you can see, we could, like just by bringing it down a little, I added a whole extra line there. But that's kind of a waste of space because we have all this space over here, and it just takes away from your map screen area. I have this one guy I work with for the city of Corona. If you didn't know, I don't remember if I mentioned, I work a full-time GIS job for the city of Corona. And I have this coworker, and he has toolbars going down to like here. That's because he works with a lot of custom water flow modeling and all this stuff. So he has a million toolbars. I look at his ArcMap screen and I get dizzy. So I like to just put it kind of up here, separate but close. So that's the first way of adding the toolbar. You can also get rid of the toolbar by right clicking and just unchecking it, and then it's gone. And then you can also add a toolbar by going to Customize and Toolbars. It's the same exact list. And because I already had the toolbar docked someplace before, it does its best to place it back to where it knows you last had that toolbar. So, two ways. Some people prefer one way, some people prefer the other. You're going to find with ArcMap, there will be 100 ways to do one thing. And it's just all about what you prefer, what's efficient to you. Everyone works a little differently. All I really care about in this class is if your maps look right. I know what these maps are supposed to look like. If you find a way to do it differently than the way I've shown you, show it to me. Tell me how you did it. I swear, every day I go to work, I learn something new. Like, I think I will know everything about a particular function of ArcMap or a way to do something. And then I very quickly get proven wrong. Because either I find a way, or a coworker finds a way, or one of my interns will find a way. There's just so many ways to do things. So don't be afraid to experiment and try around. Also, this is just kind of a standard rule for this class, for this field, for this subject, GIS. If you have a problem, if you get an error message, if something doesn't work like I'm showing it to work, Google your problem. People have been working with this software for a very long time, and there are going to be forums out there where people are losing their minds trying to figure it out, and then they have very smart people help them find answers, and it might be the answer you're looking for. So Google is your best friend. I use it every day to help me figure out problems. So, moving on. So, back to our attribute table. This whole lab is about. So, just a couple kind of key phrases you're going to hear me say, and some of them are interchangeable, is in a table we have columns and we have rows. you can kind of think of, to help differentiate the two, think of columns like those big pillars that help hold up buildings. Like, you know, like the old Roman buildings. They're the large, grand columns. They're vertical. They're always vertical. Columns are vertical. Rows are horizontal. And you can see when I highlight a row, or a record, as we will sometimes say, in our attribute table, it also highlights its shape on the map. And I can click down on one, drag it, say I want all these, and now all of those are highlighted on the map. Sometimes that's really useful if, like, let's say, so every state has their own unique identifier number like this with the county system. So say we wanted just Ohio when we had many counties of states. You could just go down and drag as you see all the 39s, and then when it changes to 40, stop, don't highlight that, and then you'll just have Ohio. That's not a very good example because there's 88's a bit much to do that with. As we'll see later in this lab, there are other ways better for selecting that. I'm trying to think of a good example off the top of my head right now, and I'm not. But you might have something that has a bunch of different values in a column, and like only 3 of them are the same. And so then you highlight just those 3, and then you can see where they are on the map. For small selections, that sort of thing is fine. Just know it's a thing you can do. It's not always the best way, though. Usually not the best way. Sorry, I'm babbling again. So here we have the attribute table for our counties. Now let's go ahead and I'm just gonna add these in now. Here's our colleges, and here's a table that has no spatial information. That's why we have this funny symbol here compared to like this polygon symbol over here. And as you'll see in a few minutes, we're going to join this table to that one. But say we want to look at several different attribute tables and compare and flip-flop back and forth. So for a table, you're just going to right-click and open, and then open attribute table on these city points. Right, no, those census counties. On these college points up here. And you'll see every time we add a table, a new tab gets added down here for easy flip-flopping through tables. And then also, say you wanted to view 2 tables at the same time, click on the table that you want and kind of just drag it, like I held down with the left. And now it's the same as when we were docking our attribute table in the first place, is it shows you where you can dock it. So now we can view 2 tables side by side, and that's going to come in very helpful when we start to join tables together. And then also you can, maybe you can't. Okay, in this program you can't. Never mind. Ignore me. Don't ignore me. Ignore that for now. So anyway, counties and our related table with, and you can see this table has population information, housing, county name, ID. So helpful information that is not found in this other table over here. That is why we will be joining these together later. So a couple other functions of tables. So say we have selected some things, either through a select by attribute or a spatial selection, or we just do our fun, happy click and drag thing. Sometimes you don't want to see the rest of these. These don't matter. It's just a waste of space. This button down here, super handy. Show selected records. First, so we can click on here, and also you can see how many records you have selected here. So 21 of 88. And when we click on just this show selected records button, that's all you're going to see is those records. So if you do something to unselect a record, that goes away. We're down to 20. We only see 20. So it's a handy little button. You're going to find yourself wanting to look at that one a lot. So, and then up here, clear selection. That completely undoes your selection. Make sure you actually want to undo your selection, especially if it was a lot of work to get to that selection. But sometimes you do just need to clear out your selection. So that's a happy little button. That button can also be found up here. It does the same thing. Notice how it turns dark when I selected things. So I could click on either that one or that one. Clear. And when you don't have anything selected, 0 of 88, if you go to the show selected records, it's going to be a blank because nothing is selected. So our next bit is about we're still just kind of examining the data and looking at what kind of data is available in what kind of formats in this program. So as you'll see in SmartBox 13, which I'm just going to go over very briefly, again, make sure you go into your book. It's on page 43. Go and read it. So there's 4 different kinds of data that we primarily deal with in ArcMap. Nominal data, ordinal data, interval data, and ratio data. So just kind of some examples of each. Nominal data. That's just like a name. Like a county name field. This is all nominal data. But nominal data doesn't have to just be names with alpha characters. It could be numeric fields. Remember, just because something's a number doesn't mean we want to perform math on it. If we subtracted this county from this county, what does that mean? Nothing, because it's nominal data. Nominal data is comprised of unique IDs. So you go, so this county for this state will only ever have that county ID number. Same thing for the states, as you would see if we had other states' data on here. Ohio's ID is 39. You won't find any other state with that ID number. Like California, I can't remember California's ID number, but I guarantee you it's not 39. And then the next are the 2 different kinds of numeric data that we have. The first one is called interval data. Interval data means that there are no fixed zeros. Zeros do not mean the absence of something. So kind of the easiest way to explain that, which is not data that we currently have on the screen, is temperature data. Think about 0 degrees Fahrenheit. That doesn't mean that there's no temperature, right? Our temperatures can get lower than 0. They can go into the negatives. You can have like that polar vortex that was happening in like the mid central part of the US just like a month ago. It got to negative 20 degrees, negative 50 wind chill some places. So it was definitely lower than 0. The 0 did not, once they hit 0, it wasn't like, oh, well, there's no more temperature. It's still a temperature. It doesn't mean the absence of something. So then that brings us to ratio data. And with ratio data, zeros are significant. They do mean the absence of something. Like here with the population. Obviously, we don't have 0 population for any of these, but if there was 0 population, that would mean there are no people there. None. 0. Zilch. The 0 is an absence. Same thing for your age. If you're 0 years old, you have lived 0 years. If you weigh 0 pounds, you weigh nothing. So, I know that can get confusing. It's just kind of a thing you've got to get stuck in your head. Ratio means the 0 is a lack of something, and with interval data, the 0 is just kind of a point on a scale. It's the 0 is not meaningful. It's like temperatures. And that will be on a quiz. So our next bit is about joining tables. So like I specified before, we don't have this data, which is about the same counties as over here, but we don't have this data about these counties with our shapes. This has no geospatial data. It is literally just a table. It's like if you could open it in Excel. Open Excel and just see rows and rows and columns of numbers. So what are you going to do when you want to have population data tied to your actual geospatial representative counties? Well, you join your tables together. So to join tables in ArcMap, this is very important. In each of the tables that you're trying to join to each other, you need the same exact matching fields. They can't vary. If they're slightly different at all, they will not join correctly. You will just end up with a bunch of null fields, no data. So for example, of exactly the same. So you won't see this field in your table from what you download in Canvas. This is something I made to illustrate this point. So we have that field there and this there. They're obviously both, let's sort these. These are obviously both names of the counties, right? Allen, Allen. It's the same, right? No, it's not. Give you a second. Can you see why they're not the same? In our second table here, everything is in all caps. Yes, even having your letters in capitals means that they will not join. They are separate. And this is probably one of the most common errors that you will find with data out in the wild when you want to join one thing to another, is something was just capitalized differently. Maybe they did them all uppercase. Some people like to do that with all their text data. Some of them will do proper capitalization like we find over here. Or we could also potentially not have this county, but only have this field, and that includes the word county after that, and that's all in caps. And so technically, yes, they show the same thing, except they don't. According to the computer, they don't. So there are all kinds of ways you can manipulate the data, which I can make a special video if you're interested in that, to help clean up your data. I think that might even come into play in a future lab. Luckily for this lab, they give us these neat and tidy county ID numbers that are exactly the same. So that is what we are going to join our table with, because none of these others would work without us having to clean them up. So to join the one to the other, we are going to click on the layer that we want the join to happen to. And this will make sense in a second. So notice, let's scroll through here. It ends with shape, area, all these other things. No sign of the all caps county name or population or housing, any of that. So it's just a standalone table. And this is our table with the spatial records. You know, you can click on them and get highlighted. Here you do that, nothing's highlighted because there's no spatial component. So over here we are going to, so we want to join this table to this table. So when starting a join, you want to start by right-clicking on the layer name of the table you eventually want the records to show up in. So I right-click, I go to Joins and Relates, and click on Join. So here you can see it lists all of our layers. It usually will default to auto-selecting a table that you have added to your map if you have added one. Or you can always, if it's not in your map, go find it wherever you have it. Choose it there. And then, so this top one, these are fields that are in our original table. And so for this one, we want to use County FP. That's its name. It's okay if the names of the fields are different, as long as the contents of them are the same. So here I'm going to click on County FP. And we're joining it to this table. That's correct. And for this one, we need to, sometimes ArcMap will automatically try to select the correct field for you, and it most of the time gets it wrong. So obviously we don't want the ID that does not match our County FP. So, but what we want, obviously in this table, it's just called County. So there we go. We're going to keep all records, and we're going to validate our join. This does checks to see how many of what is going to actually join, what's going to work. It'll tell you if there are errors. This one looks clean. It looks good. Nice, happy, clean join. You'll only ever get this in class. In real world, it'll be a little tougher. So appreciate it while it's like this. That's all I have to say. So we press OK, and it's joined now. So we could actually just click out of this table, and if we scroll all the way to the end of our columns, ta-da! Population, housing, our capitals, all that. It's there, hooray. Now we can begin to work with this data. Also, I recommend, especially, always read all the smart boxes, but particularly for joins, because they do get complicated and there's a bunch of different kinds, and we're only demonstrating one kind of join here. Go to Smartbox 14 on page 45, and it continues on to page 46 to explain the several different kinds of joins that they are, because you will likely use them in the future. So now that we've got this extra data on here, we can kind of start to find out more about these counties. Like, for example, what it shows in the book is we want to see the county with the lowest population. And we can just do a simple sort here by right-clicking on population and sort descending. This will make our data start with the biggest number up here. So for the largest county, most populous county. And then if we were to scroll to the bottom, you can click there. So you can kind of see where, all right, let's make this a little smaller. Most populous, least populous. And that's great. Keep in mind, this is something I see a lot with student submissions. When you're turning in your maps, frequently students will leave something selected and then export their map when you don't necessarily want that. You want to do other things to show whatever it is you're trying to show with your map. So, because if you export your map with these selections shown, you will export literally this with these bright blue selections, which does not make the most cartographic sense, as you will learn later when we talk more about cartography. So just so you know, if you export a map, it'll export with those bright blue outlines. Sometimes useful, more often it's just ugly. So the next way that we're going to do selections is, so let's clear these out. So I didn't explain it right now when I just did it. So when I can select just one row, and kind of like when I was explaining how to add multiple data sets in at one time through the Add Data button, we can hold down the Shift key before we click on our next record, and it will highlight everything in between there. And that can be really helpful if you're like, oh, I want all these, and you have to like scroll a bit. No clicking through these one by one. But I think it's more commonly useful for, so you can click on the one, hold down the Control key on your keyboard. Whoop. Hold down the Control key on your keyboard. Or no, sorry. What I just did is I held down the Control key and then tried to scroll, and that's why it zoomed out funny, which you might like. It's up to you. But, so click the one, scroll down to, like, for example, our lowest population one, hold down Control, and click. And that's how we get those two separate ones highlighted at the same time. Okay, moving on. So now we're going to do selections by doing a select by attributes. So there's a couple ways, as usual, that you can get to this function. You can click here and click on select by attribute. You can also go up here to selection, select by attribute. And you can also selection, oh no, actually not through here. Thought you could do it through here. So okay, primarily those two ways. Select by attribute or through up there. It brings up the same exact window, same exact tool. As usual, you want to read Smartbox 16 to go further in about reading about SQL queries, which is the coding language that we use to make these selections. This is the same exact kind of window that you're going to see when we do definition queries later on in this class. It's very helpful. So for now, what we want to do is we want to see counties with a population that is over 127,500 people. So what we'll do for that is we want to scroll down to population here. We can just double click and it pops it down here. Now you can type in this window. I only recommend doing that when you get really comfortable with SQL and you know your data. You don't necessarily need to do all that much typing ever. So we're going to do population is, we want greater or equal to than, and now here's, we do have to type right here, but we're going to just type in these numbers, 127,500. Put a, I don't think it matters if you put a space in between here or not. You can click apply. If we put a space, it still works. So right here, the space doesn't matter, but like, for example, the space between here and here matters. That's why you just, as much as you can, click on everything. So we hit apply, and now all counties that have a population that is equal to or over 127,500 people are selected. Cool. It's a way of refining our data so that we can start performing analyses on it and to figure out what we want to see. Like, we have a problem, we want to see these things. So you just kind of figure out how to apply it to your data. In this case, the book walks you all through it. Yay. So you will use this number here to answer the questions 2.6 through 2.8, and then you will do further select by attribute stuff to answer 2.9 through 2.11. While you do not have to turn in the map from this lab, you do have to answer all the questions, and that will be specified on Canvas. So let's go back to clearing that out. So our next kind of selection that we're going to do for this lab is a compound selection, a compound query. And that's where we have two or more of these kinds of statements that we want to apply to the data at the same time. We can do that with these various operations that are right here, kind of on the outside of our little query. So the ones you're going to use the most often are either and or. These two do different things, and it might not be as intuitive as you think it's going to be. So, for example, the one that the book wants us to do is this population and counties that have housing that is greater than or equal to 100 100,000. Now, the difference between and or here, when you make it an and statement, what it's going to look for in the table are counties that fulfill both of these requirements. Neither one of the, like, there can't be in your selection, it will not choose a county that has housing over 100,000 and population that's 100,000, because that 100,000 population is less than what we told it we want. Now, if we were to, let's watch how that changes when we change this to or. We apply to that and see how we suddenly got several more selection counties that got thrown into our selection. It's because now it's just looking for counties that fulfill one or the other or both of these selections. So it's looking for all the population that fulfills this requirement, and then it looks for all the counties that fulfill this housing requirement. Now these houses, they might not have, the counties that fulfill this requirement might not match this one, and that's because it says or. We replace that with and so that both of the requirements are fulfilled. And which one's not better than the other, it all depends on what you're looking for within your data. And also, not all of our select by locations are always going to have to deal with numbers. And this is where you could try to type them out if you want to, but you probably don't want to, because especially being this new, you'll likely mess up a space or an apostrophe somewhere. And this is, we want to select counties with specific names. So, for example, we are going to do Census Counties, Ohio, name equals, and when we press get unique values, this is going to give us all the names. So again, we don't have to type in these names. We can just click on them, double click on them, and they will fill out our table for us. So we are looking for Ohio name equals Columbiana, or the name equals, and now here's where it's handy, especially when you get a field with a lot of names. You can type in right here, start typing it in, Mahone, and see how it jumped it down and lightly highlighted Mahoning here. So it just kind of filters down through the table for you to help you find what you're looking for. So now we double click on it here, and it fills that. Now, we could not do an and statement out of this selection. If we were trying to do that and have this be and, it's not going to find anything, because every single record only has one value for a name. It can't have more than that. So how is something going to be both Columbiana and Mahoning for the name? It can't. So when you have unique selections like this, you're almost never going to use and statements. Let's change this back to or, and you can see that two are selected now. And sometimes when you click on something else, that attribute window, select by attribute window, or whatever window you're working with will pop away, and you'll just have to open it up again. And it's a pain because it gets rid of your old one. So be careful clicking around until you're done with your selection here. So real quick, I'm just going to finish up our selection here. So now we have our 5 counties. We can click on apply, and there they are. Happen to be the same counties that those schools are in, which is our study area for this whole chapter. So if I press apply, it just will select them, and this window will stay up. If we press OK, it goes away, but we still have our selection there. So we don't care about the rest of the state of Ohio at this point, because what we just selected out is our study area. So why bother having the rest of it on there? It's a waste of screen space. So now what we'll do is export these results and make them into their own layer. This can be really helpful if you know you're going to be returning to this area time and time again, so you don't have to keep doing this select by location over and over again. We're just going to make it a permanent layer on its own. So we'll go here to export. Let's make sure we know where it's going. We don't want it to go in Chapter 1. We want it to go into our Chapter 2 geodatabase, and we will call them our 5 counties. Save. Okay. And yes, look at that, our happy 5 counties. So now we can unselect, doesn't matter anymore. We don't even really need this anymore. Also, check it out. Because we exported the table while we had the join active, the join was still in place, our new... Oh, that's weird. It should have had it. Oh, whoops. There we go. Because we exported the counties that we had selected while that layer had a join, the export includes all of the fields from our join. So now they are a permanent part of that layer. Again, useful for any future studies or anything. So now we want to zoom into that area. Going to go ahead and zoom into that layer. And let's see. So now we can start getting information just about this area that we care about. So for example, we want to know the total population of the whole area. So we can right click on the field name, go to statistics, and now it shows us statistics based on this field. So the minimum, the county with the smallest amount of people, the max amount of people in any one of these counties, and the sum, which is the total. It's the total number of people that are in all of these counties. So you have that number right there. Keep an eye on that number. It's one of your questions for question 2.14. And so, let's see. Now that we are zoomed into our study area, we're going to look at how to put labels onto features. They help when you have your exported PDF of your map. Once it's a PDF or a JPEG, we don't have access to the attribute table anymore. So things can kind of get lost as to what they were. And you might want to show some information. So what we can do is we can go in the properties. For the properties, you can either double click like I just did or right click and go down to properties. I like to double click, I find it a little faster. Now we're going to go into the labels tab and turn on this button, label all features. We want to label them by their name, and we're just going to keep all the other defaults for now. But here you could change it so that they are labeled by literally anything else, but we're keeping with the name for now. We press OK. A little cluttered, but there they are. There's things we're going to learn later on how to clean that up. And so at this point, kind of work on your own. For page 57, you have 4 different questions you need to answer about this data, and you'll be performing various select by attributes queries that will give you the answers. Some of them you need to do it based on the county, some of them based off of the colleges, all using the select by attribute tool. So I will leave that for you to go. I'm trying to wrap up this video a little bit just because it's getting a little bit long and you're probably tired of hearing me talk if you're even still here. So, for the last part, we are going to talk about hyperlinking some features. And what we're going to do. So this allows our map document, keep in mind, not our PDF or our JPEG, but it'll allow our map document or map package that we share with someone to be interactive so you can see pictures of it. Because you might like just bring this whole screen up for a presentation that you're doing, and this is a way to make it more interactive. There are better ways of making online interactive maps now. You'll have an option to do one of those for your final project, so we'll get there. But for now, we're going to kind of use this old school method, and that is with hyperlinks. So hyperlinks reference a spot on your computer, and so and an image that's there, like these images that came in our Chapter 2 folder. So here we go into our map document properties from the file menu, and here we can put in our title, summary, description. By the way, if you fill these out here, if you decide to after this make a map package to share with someone, all of these will carry over to that, so you don't have to type them out in that sharing window. So that's helpful. And so first but for now, we're looking at the hyperlink base. This is kind of telling the map document, all right, all my hyperlink images that I'm going to specify later are coming from this one area, and that's so that we don't have to type out the entire computer address in each one of our fields. So our hyperlink base in this case, for mine, and you're going to want to see where it is for yours, and you can just look at your catalog tree. It helps with this. So we're going to go into D:// Dropbox / teaching stuff / GIS 130 / Chapter2 / Chapter2 working copy. And yeah, that's it. So I followed that, then it's / into that folder, and then this folder is within that folder, so / and then /, and then our folders are all within there. So, okay. So we have that set for now. Oh, I have disobeyed my own rules, I just realized. We should have saved our map a really long time ago. By the way, you never know when ArcMap is just going to kind of crash and destroy your world. So you want to save your map fairly frequently, just so you don't have to start from scratch. Don't be like me, kids. Save early, save often. Anyway, so now we have the base for our hyperlinks specified, but now we need to have a field within our data that actually gives the name of the images that we want. So we are going to add a field to our table, and we're going to call it photo name, and we want it to be a text because it's nominal. And here, this is optional, but it's something I like doing, and it's a good habit for you to get into. The book does not specify this. Put in an alias that looks nice, properly capitalized, has a space in there. Trust me, when you get into web mapping, that will save your life. So we press OK. Now we can see at the end of our table here, photo name, and see how, so our field name is all lowercase, photo, no space, name. but it shows our alias here. Like, we can even change the alias if we want to. And just, it makes your table a little more readable. I feel like this is something that's not taught enough, so I'll try to be demonstrating good attribute table hygiene like this as we go through the class. So now we're finally going to use this happy editor toolbar that we added forever ago. We're going to start editing, and now we can just double click on our fields and type in them. How cool is that? So first, let's wow. Okay, kids, also don't be like me. I didn't pay attention to what field I was adding, or what table I was adding the field to. We don't want it for this table. This is the 5 counties. We want it for our colleges, because we have pictures of colleges, not counties. My bad. So here's another thing. If you try to go to and add a field, and it's grayed out, it's like, oh no, what do I do? You're probably in edit mode. You cannot add fields while in edit mode. So now that I've stopped editing, I can click on add field, photo name, text, happy alias. Okay. So see, that's where we want it. Notice how if I double click on it right now, because we're not in editing mode, you can't edit it. Start editing. Now we can type in there. Cool. And real quick, one thing I'm going to do that's going to help me out is I'm going to go to the college's name. So those are what we care about, and I'm going to freeze the column. So then, no matter how we scroll, that's permanently right there. It helps when you have really long tables like this. So our first one that we have an image for is for YSU, Youngstown State University. So I don't see a specific way that it wants us to find that, so that's fine. So I'm just going to sort this by name. Youngstown State University. So the path name for this, we're just going to type in ysu.jpg. And there we go. Next, we want what are these other school names? YSU, ITT, which is probably, here we go. You want this one. So itt.jpg. And our next one is MCC. So the school, Mahoning County Career, blah blah blah. So this one is mcctc.jpg. Keep holding down the shift button. JPG. So there we go. We've typed in all of our names. They're what matter. We can save edits, stop editing. And the next step is to enable the hyperlinks. So we're going to go into the properties. I'm going to go to display, support hyperlinks using this field. We want photo name. And I believe we want to keep it as a document. Now we can press OK. So now if we want to view hyperlinks, we can click on this. And let's see, where is the school? There it is. If we click on that, See how our symbols with hyperlinks have kind of turned blue? Okay, something's gone wrong. Don't be like me, kids. Read your instructions a little more carefully. So, I'm going to figure out what happened wrong with mine later. But theoretically, when you click on that, it'll pop-up that will show you the picture. I don't know what happened with mine, so I need to take a look at it a little more closely. Follow the instructions, kids. I probably somehow typed in something wrong. But anyhow, that's this lab in a nutshell. If you actually watch this start to finish, good for you. You're going to have a separate on your own activity that is what you actually turn in. Half of your points for this week will come from doing questions 1 through 19 that are scattered throughout this lab chapter. And you'll type those up in a Word document, just answer them, submit it, and then your next part will involve this data, but you'll be making a map showing something else. And you'll turn that in, and you'll get credit for the second half of your lab. And I will specify that on the Canvas assignment page for it. So I hope some of this made sense. I know I kind of ramble on and go on for a little bit. I will be including links in the YouTube description page for timestamps of showing you what I talk about when. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know if there's anything you'd like me to do different with these videos. Like I said, this is my first time trying it this way, so I'm open to feedback. I'm just doing my best to make sure things make sense to you guys. So, happy mapping, everyone. I'll see you later.